We have with us Bilal Abdul Kareem, mashallah, tabarakallah, our brother who's on the ground in Aleppo. Assalamu alaikum, Bilal, how you doing? I hope you can hear us, Bilal. Can you hear us from London?
I think we can't hear Bilal.
Yeah, I think we haven't. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bilal, I hope you
Wa
can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. How you doing, Akhi?
Long time, man.
It's been some time. Allah yahfadak, mashallah. Good to hear from you.
Alhamdulillah, good to hear from you all.
Okay, Bilal, the situation is that we're hearing from yourself many different reports on what's going on the ground. Just give an upkeep in terms of what's really happening today, especially, and what's happened the last couple of days up to today for all the brothers and sisters who are watching throughout the networks that we're going live on.
Well, as people have known, there was a fierce bombardment of every type of rocket, missile, bunker buster that you could imagine. And there's been a deal that has been reached where rebel fighters will leave the city, and all of those civilians who want to leave as well will be allowed to leave. However, over the past couple of days, there have been at least 2 agreements with some starts and some stops. And up until now, you still have tens of thousands which are still trapped in these besieged territories. They are trying to make their way out. Fighters with their families are trying to make their way out. There have been incidents, 4 killed, some were taken prisoner. So there's a lot of things going on right now. The situation is just trying to be resolved. As we understand, the evacuations are supposed to resume, but we're waiting on firm confirmation on that.
Jazakallah khair. Bilal, from what we're hearing today from some of the journalists, what happened with the Red Cross and the Red Crescent, they stood by while some of the evacuees were targeted and hurt. What do you know about this situation?
Well, I interviewed some of the actual people that were accosted during the incident. And I think the better question has to be is, what did people expect that the Syrian Red Crescent was going to do with their main office down in Damascus? What did people expect? And the Red Cross, do you expect that they were going to pull out AK-47s, point them at the regime, and then say, no, you're in violation of the agreement, you're not supposed to do that? I mean, who would expect that they would do that? And who would expect that just because there are monitors there looking, I mean, the cameras have been on what's been happening here in Syria for 6 years, and the negative press hasn't been a deterrent. So I'm surprised that people are surprised that the regime behaved this way. Why are you surprised?
I think it's not just surprise, Brother Bilal. I think a lot of people, they don't know how to deal with this situation. That they're looking for an end to the, inhumanity that is taking place. And they're hoping that there's some semblance of civility, that these international bodies, whether it's the UN or the Red Cross, whoever, that there's some semblance of civility or law or something that will kind of let people believe that there's still humanity there.
Well, you see, now we're going to go into a different phase where we all have to sit, both Muslims and non-Muslims, we're going to have to sit down and just say, hey, look, the system that is in place currently to deal with issues like the one in Syria is broken down. It is inadequate. Because I think it's obvious from the 500,000 people, and that's an extremely conservative estimate, it has not served to protect the innocent people. Now, there are going to be some hard questions that need to be asked in the very, very near future. I'm talking about like today and tomorrow and going forward. And those questions are, We are very, very keen to praise the works of the people who are doing charity work, the people who are giving medicine, doctors, white helmets, and all of these organizations. But of course, I'm excluding ISIS out of this equation because I don't consider them to be an Islamic group. However, there's one group that's left out of this equation, and that's the fighters who have been protecting the Syrian people from an army which has killed 500,000 people now. People might want to say, hey, you know, you're supposed to be a journalist. You're not supposed to be making that determination. I'm not making any determination except that which is painfully obvious. In spite of all of the aid which has come into Syria, that which is stopping that marauding army from taking over the rest of the population and making an even bigger slaughter than we saw in Rwanda, if we haven't seen it already. It's not a wall full of blankets and flashlights and water towers. While the Syrian people are in desperate need of those items, there are people who are here with no arms and no legs and are still have pieces of metal in their body because they thought that seeing the Arab regime come in and kill people was a bad idea. Unfortunately, I think that they are either mentioned in one of two contexts. Either one, they're labeled all as bearded terrorists, or two, they're not mentioned at all. And we continue to praise the people, as we should, who have done safer roles. Even myself as a journalist, my role, it might not look like it, but it is not the same as somebody trying to drop a missile on your head on the front lines. And I think that we're going to have to make some real changes in the Islamic community and the non-Islamic community if we're going to see if we could stem off the blood flow here.
Bilal, Jazakallah khair. I think that gives a good little insight to how things are different to, it gives a good dimension and it goes good with our conversation. But a question that's going to come in, Bilal, is the issue of the women and children, the present situation. How far do you think that we're going to go with this in terms of this so-called evacuation, especially when it's affecting the women and children? Do you really think that we're going to see any light in the next couple of weeks, or do you really think it's all downhill from now?
Well, I think that it's beneficial for all the parties for this Aleppo situation to come to a close and to wind down. So I am anticipating that in the next couple of days, inshallah, the situation would be resolved, and I hope so, because it's very cold. I'm just trying to wear what I'm wearing now so I look decent on camera because all of my clothes got burned up. So I don't really have a decent jacket to wear, whatever that I would appear on camera. But it's really, really cold, and it's below 0 degrees, and people are suffering, and they're living in burned out, broken houses. Even me myself. Approximately, it was in the evening time. It was shell after shell after shell that slammed into the building, so much so that we were afraid, because we were in the basement, that they were going to bring the building down on top of us and we'd be trapped in the basement. And I'm talking about shells landing. I'm talking about one every minute or two. That's how intense it was. So we decided what we were going to do is we were going to wait until the next shell landed, and then we were going to try to run as fast as we could to another building. One shell landed, and my colleague Muhammad Ghazi and Abdul Samad Dagoul, it landed, and we decided to say, okay, let's run. As we were running, we got halfway, and I'm talking about we were just a few steps away. Another shell lands on the building, and I remember I just put my hands over my head so that rocks and steel reinforced concrete wouldn't fall on my head. Not if I had a head full of hair, that it would have protected me anyway, for people out there who are starting to laugh. I know you guys out there. But anyway, I'm just giving you an idea of how intense it was.
Your estimation, how do you think this whole thing is going to play out? What do you think is the end game here?
Well, if you're talking about the end game for Syria in general, is that correct? Or are you talking about Aleppo?
About Syria in general? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, I think that the situation here in Syria is going to, unfortunately, I think it's going to continue for some years to come. Why do I feel like that? I feel like that because I feel that the international community at this time isn't prepared to make some of the changes and adjustments that are needed to be able to counter certain aggressive nations. I think that they're in a mode where they're just kind of hoping that things are going to calm down, things are not going to flare up, and eventually somebody's going to end up talking and somebody's going to agree. I think that that's what they think is going to happen. Or I guess we should say, I think that that is what the international community is hoping will happen, because that would absolve them of the responsibility of having to make drastic changes in the way that we deal with conflicts like these. I don't think that they're ready to make that transition. I think that the continued demonization of the Muslim community is going to fuel the fire, and I think that I wish I could say that after Aleppo, the world community is going to stay engaged, and they're going to look to make some real soul searching do some real soul searching and find some answers. But to be honest with you, I'm not convinced. And even the Muslim community, again, I'm not convinced, because it's almost surreal how Aleppo had to reach this point when the alarming bells have been sounding for a long time, that it had to reach this point before people said, whoa, I think we should be doing something. I think that we should have been doing something a long time ago. But the past is the past, and we leave it there. But now I need to ask everybody that's out there that's watching, are you prepared to stay engaged with Syria? Are you prepared to do whatever you've been doing for the past week to continue to do that so that you could save lives, not only Muslim lives, there are non-Muslims here as well. And what's more is the fear is that this conflict is going to spread. It's not going to stay static. If well-intending people are not going to be engaged to stand against evil and oppression, then it's going to be trouble. Okay, so it's really, it's up to all of us.
Jazakallah khair. Before we go out, I know we're taking a lot of your time, and we want your safety to, of course, is very, very important for us. But just to ask you the last kind of question, like you said, and I think it's clear that we need to get our community focused on this for long term. This is not a short term thing, and it's due to the apathy that the community has sometimes in these kind of situations, especially with the kind of media that's around and the kind of information that's going around. But let's just turn it back to the thing that we did identify, which was the humanitarian cause, and that's the really, really important thing. It's one doable, and that's led to so much. And that is, Bilal, what do you think actually in humanitarian senses should the community, especially in the West, be doing? And with that, give us a brief update on the situation of the women and children there.
Well, from the women and children, I don't want to give you the update of the women and children, because that excludes groups of people that should not be excluded. And that includes people, men in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever the case is, including those who are older people. So I think this is only my idea, I think by limiting it to the situation of women and children, I think is short-sighting what the situation is, because even the men do not deserve that they would have the treatment which has been meted out to them over these past 6 years. So the situation with all of the parties concerned, as I made mention, we're talking about sub-zero temperatures at night. There is inadequate housing. Even me, myself, yesterday I was really, really happy because I found a bottle of clean drinking water. Now, I'm from New York. I was accustomed to going over to the kitchen sink whenever I wanted water. Uh, and the fact that I had gone a couple of days without finding clean drinking water has got to tell you a lot. And with the very cold temperatures, the lack of food, there are a lot of humanitarian conditions that need to be met here. But there's one thing, and that's the people from the UK have been doing an amazing job. Everywhere that you go, you see UK charities who have been doing the job here. I mean, on a very, very, very special level. And the Syrian people see that. They recognize that. And they're like confused sometimes because they look and they say, wait a minute, but the UK government really gives Muslims a hard time. And we see them as an enemy. But whenever we look around, we see all of these food parcels, and they're from the UK. So they actually need somebody to explain that dynamic to them, that the UK government and the people in the UK are not necessarily one and the same, and their politics are not one and the same. So I take every single opportunity to try to help the people here to understand that the brothers and sisters and non-Muslims there have done a lot to see that that Syrians don't go to bed hungry, don't go to bed cold, and can live a dignified existence. And I'm going to keep on telling them that. And you guys just keep doing your part. Inshallah, I'll keep doing my part, and we'll see what Allah has written for us all.
It's really nice to speak to you again. It's been some time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you safe and all the other brothers safe there. And just to make it very clear to you that, you know, your opinions and what you're telling us is extremely valuable. We are lost from knowing what's going on the ground there. All the brothers, all the reporters on the ground, news and everything you're doing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala firstly keep you safe. Secondly, put this on your mizan al-hasana on Yawm al-Qiyamah, inshallah. And the third thing is that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you a means to help other people and get this message out so that people really know the reality of what's going on there. Until the next time, Bilal, I've got to let you go, inshallah. We hope to see you again, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.